Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about gold and we're going to talk about silver. But first and foremost, gold. Gold, as I film this, is at an all-time high once again in US dollars at over $2,577 per ounce. There's been some recent events that have attributed to this, and we're going to discuss those in the video up ahead. I'm also going to talk about the recent uptick in silver as well. Silver is up nearly $2 in the last 2 days. That's a pretty good move. What has that done to the ratios between the two? Where do I see it going from here? And why is it happening? That's all the things we're going to talk about today in the video. Be sure to stick around. So first we'll talk about gold. Gold, obviously, as you can see in front of you, is at an all-time high, as I mentioned in the intro, at over $2,577 per ounce when priced in the US dollar. There's been a few things that have went on the last several days that have had impact on that, although we could probably find 10, 15, 20 reasons or things that can impact the price of gold. I'm just going to touch on these few that are kind of in the news and you can do some more research on should you choose. First thing is the PPI. That's the Producer Pricing Index. So what that is, that's a collection of indexes that measures the average change in prices that producers receive for their goods and services over time. Now, this is not the consumer index, it's the producer pricing index, but ultimately it's a measure of inflation from the perspective of the seller rather than the consumer. Now, those prices in that index went up. And what type of industry does it look at? Well, it looks at mining, manufacturing, gas, agriculture, forestry, fishing, waste, electricity, and scrap metal. And that number is going up. So essentially that's a measure of inflation, that inflation isn't slowing down and that the producer pricing index is on the rise, meaning the cost to produce these goods and services is still going up. So what's that going to mean? Well, the consumer pricing index ultimately has to go up as well because that added cost gets passed along down the line. So that's having a positive impact on the price of gold and silver in US dollars. Another factor that's playing into it is the US dollar index. I've talked about this in other videos before, but I'll put up a graph here. The US dollar index sits at 100.92 as I film this video, which is quite low compared to how it's been over the last 52 weeks. And I'll put a 52-week graph up here. So that shows weakness in the dollar. The lower that number goes, the weaker the dollar is when compared to the other currencies in the index. So ultimately, when gold is priced, or silver, in these US dollars, it takes more of those dollars to purchase an ounce of gold now because the dollar itself has less purchasing power. It's weaker. It's not really that this gold that I hold in my hand magically is worth, 75 more dollars than it was a week ago. It's just that your dollars that you take to produce this are worth that much less. So it takes more to buy the same thing. Essentially, that's what inflation and that's what strength of dollar is. One other thing that's playing into this is the European Central Banks. That's the ECB. They decided yesterday on Thursday, I'm filming this video on a Friday, that they're going to lower rates paid on bank deposits from 3.25% to 3.5%. So people are speculating that more cuts will be coming from the European central banks, continuing to lower that interest rate that they're going to pay on deposits. So this is kind of a speculative outlook that those are going to continue to lower, so people are going to get less interest on funds they deposit in their financial institutions in Europe, which is having a positive impact on the price of both gold and silver. So let's touch on silver a bit now. Silver sits at $30.48 per ounce. That's over $2 higher than it was just 2 days ago. So, silver is reactionary just like gold to all these news items that I just touched on, the PPI, the US dollar index, the European Central Bank news. But there's so many other factors that are pulling and tugging at these spot prices. As we always talk about too, these prices are highly manipulated by big banks, but there are outside forces that do play into the prices as well. So I just wanted to touch on those three. But silver, once again, as I said, is up $2 an ounce. So that's a nice positive move for silver. It actually did move up a little bit more on a percentage basis than gold, which shrunk the gold to silver ratio. As I film this, we're at 84.5 to 1, meaning it takes 84.5 ounces of silver at spot price to purchase 1 ounce of gold at spot price. So as that ratio continues to shrink, gold becomes a more attractive investment. But the point we're at right now, I still think silver's the way to go. I'm still, for me personally, stacking silver. Although it's real nice to see gold, as I said, have $75 gains in a matter of a week. But silver up $2 in 2 days, in my mind, is honestly more impressive. So it's just interesting to see where the numbers are going to go from here. But my outlook has always been through our election season, which is in less than 2 months. We're going to have our presidential election here in the United States. Gold and silver, and all metals for that matter, are going to continue to be very volatile. You can read articles, you can look at polls, you can look at charts and graphs and videos, and you can find one that fits your narrative on where you think our country is headed and who's going to be in charge at the end of the day. So there's really no clear definitive answer out there on, where are we going to be at in 2 months? Nobody knows as far as a leader of the free world. So things are very uncertain. They're going to continue to be very volatile. While I have you on here, let's talk about selling your metals. I've had a lot of people selling precious metals over the last few weeks, and I think there's a lot of coin shops across the nation that are in similar situations. Not just out of necessity for people that are hurting, but there's people coming in, cashing in on these higher prices and taking profits, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would just caution you and encourage you, if you do plan to sell your items, number one, go to a reputable place. Make sure you get paid a fair price, but make sure that you are okay with that decision. Nobody wants to have seller's remorse. And in fact, I had a situation just recently. A customer came in the shop, sold 6 figures, which was essentially their whole stack worth of gold and silver and some platinum, only to reach out the next day regretting their decision because both gold and silver jumped up. You're never going to time the peak. You're never going to time the dip when you buy or the peak when you sell. So just make sure when you do go to sell or when you do go to buy, you're comfortable with the prices at that moment, because you never should look backwards having regrets, because there again, you can never fully capitalize on the low points and never fully capitalize on the high points. That's just life. It's like stocks, same thing. You want to buy low, sell high, but boy, you can never get at the bottom of the valley or the top of the mountain when you're selling. So just don't have any regrets. That's my advice. Make sure you have a clear head and you go into it knowing that you're going to get today's price. Don't be too concerned if it goes up a little bit the next day. Just like if you buy, and the price crashes the next day. Oh well, just continue to buy when you feel the price is right for you and have no regrets. That's my advice. Otherwise, it's hard to sleep at night. But that's it on gold and silver today. I appreciate you all tuning in. As I mentioned, it's going to be a wild ride for precious metals, so buckle up, hold on tight. It's going to be fun to watch, and I think there's great potential still in both metals, but for my intents and purposes, I am still stacking silver because I think the ratio between the two is still spread too far apart for me to justify buying gold at the moment. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. You all have a great day.